Okay, guys, welcome back to Let's Get Freaky podcast. I am so excited tonight to welcome three guests to the show, three awesome dudes that I had the pleasure of being on their show very recently. They are awesome. We have got Todd, Shawn, and Nate with us tonight from the Middle Aged and Creeped Out podcast. Gentlemen, how are we? Thank you for being here. I'm excited to have you.
We're excited here. Thank you, Tommy, for having us.
Should we go around the room and just introduce ourselves for anyone that may not have heard your show? Your show's absolutely awesome. If you want to go around the room, introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about yourself, and a little bit about your show as well.
I'll go ahead and start. So I'm Todd. I'm one of the co-hosts of Middle Aged and Creeped Out, and we've been doing our show for a little over 4 years. And I met Shawn Shawn, 2017.
2017. Yep. That was D-Day.
Yep. And then met Nate met him the day that we recorded our first episode. So but I've known Nate now for 4 years, so it feels like I've known him forever. So he's become a great friend of mine. So I'm a podcast addict. I listen to mainly paranormal and true crime. And I love doing what we're doing and talking about creepy stuff and the supernatural and excited to be here.
Awesome, man. Who's next?
I'm Shawn. I don't know what to call myself in this group, but I am part of the Triforce, I guess. One of the co-hosts of the show. And you said if there are people out there that hadn't heard of us, I can't imagine that's possible, but yeah.
And then I am Nate, and I am the tech engineer, as they call me. And I met these guys. They needed someone to do all the technical stuff and all the recording because they had no clue how to do it. And I've been buddies with Shawn for 20-something years, so
yeah, that's right.
He reached out to me, and I jumped on this crazy ride with him.
Awesome, man. So Nathan and Todd, you guys met through the podcast at the start of the podcasting journey.
Yep. Shawn said that he had somebody that could run the board and do all the editing and the sound, and I'm like, bring him on. I don't care who he is. Let's go. Shawn said, he's like, you guys will get along great. I said, we just need somebody. Let's do it. And when I first met Nate, it was like I've known him for 10 years. So, yeah, he's a great guy.
Mm-hmm. Yep. That's awesome how that happens, man, isn't it? How you can meet someone that you've never met before, but like after like 5 minutes, like you've known them all your life. And it's weird how that happens with some people. It's just, have you met before in another life or something? It's just like a connection straight away.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Yeah, it's interesting, man. So was that the start of the bromance? Was there a bromance straight away?
I would say yes.
Yeah.
I like the way you put that.
Yeah.
The trifecta bromance. Yeah, the tri-bromance.
Yeah. I loved your show. Your show's also, as I say, I was very lucky enough to be on it very recently, and I've been listening to it ever since. And it's a cool show. Obviously, you talk a lot about paranormal, the supernatural. You also talk about like mental health and stuff like that as well, which I think is really cool. Not a lot of people are talking about that because it's quite difficult to talk about that sort of stuff sometimes. So that's cool as well.
Yeah, I think it's something that more people should discuss, not be afraid to just, talk about their mental health and give out the hotline numbers because you never know who you're going to help. So that's something important to Nate, Shawn, and I. And we love talking about the spooky stuff, and it's got, good guy time, as we always say, and it gets us to do something creative. But, when Shawn and I came up with the idea of doing a paranormal podcast, we said, let's do something a little bit more meaningful than just talking about the creepy stuff. So let's do mental health as well. So we incorporated that in the podcast, and a lot of people appreciate that. So it makes us feel good. And if it helps somebody that maybe they needed the phone number at a certain time, then that's awesome to us. So yeah, so any way we can help, any little way,
Yeah, no, that is awesome. 'Cause I know, like personally for me, podcasts have helped me get through some dark days, to be honest. And not even like listening to about mental health, but just hearing other people talk and sort of getting into their conversation has got me through some, like, especially some bad days in my old job and stuff. Where I'm like, oh, you know, and then you listen to a podcast and you're sort of in that room with those guys or whoever you're listening to, and there's something special about podcasting, man.
That's right. Tommy, it's funny because a friend of mine, she is a neurologist. I'm sorry, not neurologist, nephrologist. And she's also a life coach, which is really cool. She's just become a life coach the last couple of years. And she and I were talking, and she said, I was talking about how it's so strange for like this guy that I met recently. He goes, I know you from somewhere. And I said, yeah, I don't think we've ever run across each other. We tried to talk.
I know we froze. Have we all
Do you
froze?
listen to paranormal, you know?
Sorry, man, we froze for a second there. Sorry,
Oh,
brother.
sorry.
I don't know if we all froze or if it was just me. So if you can go back to the start of that, sorry, man.
Oh my gosh, no problem at all. So I was talking with a friend of mine. She is a nephrologist and she's a life coach. And we were talking, and I was telling her how weird it is, you know, kind of to be on a podcast. And there was a guy that I met recently, and he was talking about how he said, I know you from somewhere. You're so familiar. There's something familiar about you. And I kept going on, and he's a nurse and I'm an occupational therapist. And we were trying to figure out how we know each other. And I said, do you listen to paranormal podcasts? And he's like, well, my wife does. And so but it was just one of those things where it's like, the only thing I could think of is you might know my voice, you know, because that's what's out there. But it's kind of funny.
Yeah.
But my friend was pointing out, she's like, you know, you're in people's ears. And she's like, as a doctor, you're like changing their chemistry and their brain. You know, they can, like you're saying, that you can be in a bad mood or be in a really dark place, and just a familiar tone or voice or energy, it really can lift you out of that stuff. And I
100%.
do that as well with other podcasts and programs that I watch.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. That's cool to think you can be talking to someone that may not know that they're talking to someone that they've listened to. That's pretty cool. That's wild. That's a wild thought as well. But I can remember being like really like quite depressed in the past and listening to a podcast episode, and that episode like cheering me up. And I can still remember that episode. You know, that's very special. So there's a special side to this podcasting game, guys. That is for sure. Helps a lot of people.
Hmm. Absolutely.
And it's a place like if you're putting a regular show out where people can turn up, they know you're going to be there at a certain time in that week, and you know, look forward to that. This is how I used to look at podcasts. I'd look forward to listening to that show, and you know, you'd have that time, you'd have your little routine, and yeah, man, it's special. It is special. So what got you guys into the podcasting at first? What was the what was the start?
You want to take it, Shawn, or you want me to?
Sure. I would call it a COVID baby. I know a lot of people call, you know, things that changed their life or turned it upside down COVID babies. But that's where all three of us were at a place where we needed something. You know, we were coming out of some dark times with COVID. And Todd and I, like Todd said, we've been friends since 2017. We were baseball dads, and our boys played baseball together. And then Nate and I, we met on my wedding night. Or my wedding day, my wedding night. What am I saying? My wedding day. That's a whole other story, right?
Was he involved?
That's who knows what's going to come out of his mouth. But so we've known each other for a long time. But and then Nate has been part of 3 bands. That's why when my wife made the suggestion, she's like, "Why don't you ask Nate?" And I'm like, "He's not going to want to be our sound engineer." And I asked him, he's like, "Sure." So Todd and I would talk about this because at first I came up with, we actually were the first 2 to come out to go out to eat again when things started opening up with COVID. And we used to have guy nights where a lot of guys would get together, and you know, it was just him and I, you know, at first, like everybody else was too scared to come out. And he started telling me, like, you know, some of the people he was meeting through the podcast, family and community, and that he was thinking about doing one. And I was like, oh man, that's great. You know, you love to talk. You have a lot of knowledge about a lot of different things. You should do it. I'll be your first listener, your biggest fan, and maybe a guest. And so he talked about, you know, doing a car or sports and paranormal. And we were like, you know, we kept coming back to that paranormal one. He basically, one of the next times we got together, said, I want you to do this with me. And I'm like, I tried to think of every reason not to do it. And I kept making, like I had too much to do, two kids, I'm married, all these things. And the more we would sit there, but he's like, let's just think about it. Let's just talk about it. And we would talk about how we would do this. And every time we came up with something, a new idea, or my sister came up with the logo and he bought the stuff, and it just was like, oh my gosh, we could actually do this. And then that night, Nate coming over and being the sound engineer, we would have been completely sunk. There's no way we would have been able, we would have just looked at the board and thought, what the heck do we do with this thing? So, and you're talking about magic. I would say a couple recordings in, Nate, I said, like, there's something here. We have magic, in a bottle. And when that emotional mental health started coming out and us three talking about it, people started making comments like, you don't hear that all the time. And we really appreciate, like, this is good for us. And if it's good for our listeners, let's keep going.
Mm-hmm.
And we started becoming unpolished where we thought we needed to be, and really, like, doing something super professional, to just doing it natural, three guys talking just like we'd be sitting there having dinner or at a bar and just enjoying each other's company.
Mm-hmm. I think that's what people like. That's what I love. It's certainly like just natural conversations.
Yeah.
And when you talk about like mental health, like so many people experience that. But as you say, especially for guys, we don't really talk about it that much. And it is great to hear people just talking about it honestly and freely. And it helps a lot of people, man. So it's really cool.
Oh, thanks. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's something we most of us experience in our life, I mean, I've certainly experienced it. I know most people that I know have probably experienced it at some point, and it can be something that never goes, that, you experience for a little part of your life, and you might come back to it. It's an ongoing battle. So yeah, it's awesome to hear guys talk about it.
Yeah.
So awesome, man. So 4 years you've been doing this. So it's a long time in the podcasting game.
It's a long time.
Celebrate our 4-year anniversary, so we're pretty proud of that.
Yeah, that's a great achievement. It really is. Do you ever butt heads, or are you always on the same? Is there
Just call it Nate. That's the only people that butt heads.
Honestly, I don't think we've ever had an argument about anything. And we've always agreed on everything we've done. And yeah, I mean, we get along great.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, you've got some great energy. I mean, I felt that when I was on your show. Like, you can just feel that there's a brotherhood there, man, and it's awesome. You can see it. So when it comes to the paranormal, why the paranormal? Have you guys had a lot of experiences? Where does the paranormal aspect come in?
Nate, I'll let you take that.
Me? Well, I know.
What's happened, Nate?
I know Todd and Shawn, they're sort of similar backgrounds where we just grew up watching horror movies and liked getting scared and the story of them. And then I always enjoyed, driving through the country and seeing an abandoned farmhouse and like, I wonder what it looks like inside. I want to go in there, and then, that sort of stems into it's probably haunted. That's why it's empty, Yeah, it primarily stemmed from the horror movie genre, and I don't know, we just really latched into the whole paranormal stuff. And then the further we get into it, it's doing some investigations and interviewing investigators and authors and other podcasts, paranormal podcasters like yourself. We're getting all these insights, and yeah, it just sort of grabs you and keeps a hold of you. You just want to learn more and hear more and experience more. And the everybody that we've met through this podcast, I mean, they've all become friends. We stay in touch with everybody, and the community is out of this world.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
I was going to say with what Nate said, the friendships that we've met is just unbelievable. It's way more than I thought, doing this podcast.
Yeah, you meet friends for life doing this.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. You put out your vibe, you find your tribe, I think. You find your people. And I don't think I made that saying up, but I've heard it somewhere, and I say it quite a lot.
Yeah, no doubt. And I would say what's cool about doing the paranormal, people, most of the people like I work with, they think it's cool that I do a podcast about the paranormal. And I work at a church. I work at a Christian church, and they think it's neat. And and a lot of them believe, and they haven't, bashed me for it or said, "Oh, how do you believe in that goofy stuff?" They haven't said anything negative. Um, but what's cool is I've learned a lot of history. I know Shawn's a big history buff, and I have learned so much history talking about the paranormal stories, whatever we're talking about. So that's a factor that I didn't even think about when we decided to do a paranormal podcast. I'm thinking just talking about the creepy stuff, spooky, the ghosts or the shadow figures and whatever else, but it's the historical places that you get to learn about. And yeah, that's kind of a bonus. So
Yeah, you learn
I
about
appreciate.
all like the legends and the laws of places and stuff like that, and
Yeah.
there's so much of it.
Oh yeah, especially where you live.
Yeah, it's pretty old where we live, but I'm fascinated by U.S. history. I'm so fascinated by it, like the pioneers. It's like something that I am so into right now because it's so new, really, America. Like really,
Mhm.
like it's like what is it, 400 years old? Am I right there? I might be wrong there. It's not very old at all. Like it's older than that, I think, but it's not very old at all, and we can literally see such a change in such a short space of time. Like I've just watched oh, what was it called? I've gone blank. American Primeval on
Mhm.
Netflix, and I think I might have spoke about this on your show. I think I might have mentioned it. I'm not sure, but that's not that long ago. That's like 200 years ago. And it is just
Yep.
a completely different world, scary world, and a ruthless world. And it just fascinates me that that was like 200 years ago, like,
Mhm.
like two or three lifetimes ago, really. I
Mhm.
just find that so interesting, man.
I think the most interesting thing we were talking about history, and I've always enjoyed history, but I did not enjoy it, to a large degree like it was taught because it's like, hey, learn this date. Why do we need to learn it? I don't know, just because everybody else does. But when I got into college. I think that's when I really started enjoying all kind of histories because I had a professor, Dr. Blevins, actually. He said, I'm going to teach you what I have to teach you. We're going to take tests on it, but I want to go down the back alleys and the dark alleys of history. And I thought, I've never really gone there. And at that time, it's not like you could Google anything. You had to actually like really look into it. And even then, you didn't have all the nitty gritty. So he started telling us stories in class, and I loved it. I mean, that's where it really sparked my interest for history and all things. Because history is not black and white like we think it is. There's
Hmm.
so many bits and pieces to it. You're talking about American history. We go a lot of our stories we end up saying, oh, it's Indian burial grounds or Indian graveyards. A lot of them are like literal mounds that they were buried in. There was a show I was listening to talking about the Denver airport and how there's so much haunting. It's one of the most haunted airports in the country, if not one of the
Hmm.
most haunted places that they talk about. And they said a lot of that probably has to do with the fact that they, with no regard, that they just kind of steamrolled over all these, burial grounds and Indian burial grounds, and they're probably not very happy about it. So
Yeah. Is that
that energy stuck.
is that where they say the reptilians are as well? Is that this?
Underground bases and all that. Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Yes. So there's a
We
lot going
covered
on
we
there.
covered that in one of our minis.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a rabbit hole to go down, that's for sure.
Oh, it is, yeah,
Oh, yeah.
yeah. I love a good conspiracy, and I love all those kind of stories and folklore and imagination things, and some of it's true, but I take it with a skeptical grain of salt too.
You
I'm
have
I'm
to.
willing to hear people's stories, but I also think, oh my gosh, what if it's true? Like,
Yeah,
oh,
you have to because you go down these rabbit holes and it's just like
you'll never get out of
you
bed.
never go to bed. No, I mean, I do believe there's truth to some of these things. I mean, I don't, obviously, we haven't got the answers. Like when it comes to history and stuff, I do think a lot of what we're told may not be 100%. The textbooks might not be bang on. We see with like how the media changes stuff now right in front of our eyes. So you can
Mhm.
imagine 200 years ago what they've changed. I know that's going down the conspiracy route, but so I do find it interesting.
Yeah, no, that's true about the changing. We don't know exactly what happened.
Hmm.
or maybe there's just a slight tweak to the exact story, and that changes a lot, you know.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. And you're hearing the winner's side of the story as well, most of the time.
Yeah, that's
You know?
right. Yeah,
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
winners write the story. That's
So have you guys experienced paranormal yourselves? Have you guys had any paranormal experiences that sort of stand out?
I
Who
can
wants to go
say
first?
for my we have together as a group
yeah.
had when we've done some of our investigations. I know for me personally, I've grown up as I've always been a weird kid. I've had a lot of
Same.
I've always dreamed a lot in my life and very vivid dreams, which I think Todd has vivid dreams as well. Some of it's been out of body experiences. I've had just lucid dreaming and meeting all I can say, angels or beings that I can't quite explain, and it's not like I tried to do it. It's not like I was like, oh yeah, let me get a book about how to leave your body or astrally travel, or I started understanding these things a little bit when they would happen to me. But yeah, ever since I was young, I've had very vivid dreams. And I don't really, like I said, I never taken drugs in my life. So I know it's not drug induced. Some people say, well, it could be like psychiatric. I'm like, oh, well, thank you very much. That's very possible. But I can't really explain some of the, like, I'll use one example. My wife and I, we have 4 kids, and our oldest, he was probably, oh, I don't know, maybe 7 or 8. And he liked it. My wife would work at night, and so he liked to sleep with me when she wasn't there, and the other kids would be in their room. Sometimes they take turns, but a lot of times Harrison would end up in there. And I had just gotten him to bed, and so I was tired, and I remember just laying down in complete exhaustion, fall asleep. And I don't even remember exactly, falling asleep, but I remember waking up to being completely out of my body and in like space, just in the middle of space. And I thought, what's happening here? And it was almost like this transition, because I transitioned, I think, into kind of a dream where I was hovering over people and I was trying to think like, what is going on here? But I just kind of relaxed into it. It didn't let it spook me out. But then I was like in space, and there was in this void, and there was this being there of light, and he had a board that was multicolored, and it was like this information was coming. He was speaking very high pitched and very quick, and I remember just thinking telepathically, slower and softer, like where I can hear it, and it changed the tone of it, and it was so much information that I couldn't really take it in, but it was like it was trying to reassure me, tell me that things are okay, like humanity's being taken care of and we're good and there is a God and this is all, those things are, keep going with your faith. And so I remember waking up with tears, like I fell back into my body. Like it was just like this collapse. And when you're in these like out of body experiences, you feel very light and blissful. And when you come back, it's very dense and you're like, there's a different feel to it. I've noticed that. And so then coming back, I just had tears in my eyes, and I wrote the whole experience down. I just documented it. And I remember just thanking God and saying, thank you for this experience. Thank you for this experience. And so just every once in a while it would happen. I would meet, a loved one in my dreams or in, like I said, this out of body experience. Then I with COVID, I've had a lot that stuff has kind of disappeared. I've noticed, and it's slowly starting to come back, but it's not nearly as intense as it used to be.
Interesting, man. How often would that happen?
It was happening more and more. I suffered with migraines for about 11 years, and they just kept getting worse and worse. And I remember that sometime after a migraine, I would have these. That's why somebody was like, oh, maybe it's like neurological or, psychological. But it was like, I don't know. I'm just having these experiences. But they, like I said, that migraines can be very unpleasant. And it was this weird, like, balance into, something very pleasant. So I don't know if that was, so in some ways it feels like a gift, but also a curse, at the same time.
Wow, man. So at the time when you first had that experience, like where you was in space and you were connecting with that being, Was that at that time, was that something that you felt like you needed to happen?
Yeah,
Was that
I would say yes. Looking back at it, well, even at that time, yeah, absolutely. I've always
wow.
been a why person. We were talking about, the whys and the questioning and all those things. I've always been that kind of person to, I will drive people nuts with the whys and the, how come, and explain this to me, and and I've ended a lot of conversation by like, just because I said so, or I don't know.
Yeah.
But
Wow, man. Can you remember what that being looked like? Like, could you see it?
so it was that's why I say a light being. It was hard to distinguish. It was honestly, how we know where we end and where we begin, but these beings, because I've had other instances, and they radiate complete bliss and love, and that's why I also think it's angelic. But to me, it's not like I didn't see wings. I just saw like light. So it's hard to know where they. It's hard to describe too, because it feels like a different dimension when it happens. And I know my brain is limited and mortal, but it's something hard to conceptualize. And I think that's why it's almost like the talking was telepathic, not wasted energy through your mouth. But I like I said, I still don't completely understand it. I don't actually tell. That's why part of this podcast, I always said, I don't talk about these things because people just start looking at you like you're completely insane.
Tell
But
me about it.
to me, this was a safe place, and that's why I probably don't tell these stories nearly like I used to, but I started to, and it was cathartic for me because it's like, and other people are like, oh, I've had weird experiences, or interacting with beings, or dark entities or shadow figures and all these things, and now to me, it's like other people are having different experiences that I can't explain.
Hmm. Oh, for sure. It's very rare to meet someone that hasn't experienced anything. Very rare. You do every now and again,
I agree.
and even
Everybody's got a
then,
story.
even then they're probably lying. They just don't want to admit it.
Yeah.
We normally always experience that. We've all, like most people, will go to you. I've never experienced anything, and then they'll go, but there was this one time, and they'll
Exactly right.
and
Yeah.
they'll tell you this wild story.
Yeah.
Wow, how are you? How can you not believe that there's more? That there's something going
That
on.
That's what's interesting. And like I said, I could probably tell you many, many stories, but it's one of those things that when I think about those things, I think, how could you ever doubt, how beautiful life is, and this is a beautiful experience, and all these things. But I'll be honest with you, I still struggle, and I still get frustrated. I get angry. Have good days, bad days. But when I really stop, and I work with a lot of patients as a medical professional, occupational therapist, and I noticed that and it happened today, actually, even in having a rough day today, I had these moments where if I just focus on the present and really listen to the person, you have these connections with people it almost makes time stand still, and if we really listen to each other, and you're talking about just sharing experiences, and that's the thing with our, paranormal podcast, is we allow people to just be themselves and to talk about what matters to them most.
Hmm.
And it is human experiences. It can be ugly, but it can be absolutely breathtakingly beautiful too when we think about
Hmm.
it.
Yeah,
But I have
100%.
to remember. I have to remember that too. Like I said, I can tell you these things, and they sound amazing, and they are. But like I said, I even with all that, I still struggle.
Hmm. Hmm.
Mhm.
When you were having these experiences, could you just tell that they were different to like they just felt different to a normal dream?
Yeah,
Because I've had that definitely where I you have a dream, but it's not like a normal dream. It's different. You feel different. It changes how you feel. Whether it's a good or a bad dream, like it's something different.
that's why I can. There's a different. I have lucid dreams, or have had, and I've had these out of body experiences, and I do consider them different.
Hmm.
And lucid dreams are just kind of like, and I've had normal dreams too, but lucid dreams are just so vivid, and it's almost like it's real. But out of body experiences, you really do feel like you're in another dimension. I've normally I get this other times I've come out of it, it's like this spinning sensation. I feel like I'm in a dream, and I start spinning, and I think, oh, it's happening, and I go into this other dimension or space, and I feel so. I've always wanted to fly. Ever since I was a kid, you asked me what my superpower I would love it to be. It would be flying. And so that's what I feel like in these experiences that I'm flying. And I'm like, why don't I do this all the time? And it was funny because I tried one time. I knew that if I just because if you get anxious, it stops. But if you just relax into it, and just take some deep breaths and really try to understand what's trying to be relayed to you, it's beautiful, and it's very overwhelming though in some ways. But I felt like I was just leaving the planet, and all I could think was, I want to turn around and prove to myself that it's a globe and kind of see what the world looks like, from space. And I turned around to make that effort, and it was completely covered in like a gray mist. And I thought, well, there's a lot there that needs to be fixed and remedied, but I'm going to go enjoy whatever this is. And I don't know, it felt like forever that I was doing this journeying through all these different, I don't know, call them portals and all this, all these different experiences. But then, I mean, in reality, it was probably minutes or no more than an hour or who knows what. But yeah, it felt like infinity.
Wow, man. I thought you was going to say that you'd turn around and it was flat for a second.
I know. I would.
Oh no!
I've been like, I'm not going back there. No,
it is flat. That's so cool, though, man. That's cool. When you're in that space, are you aware of that? There's other like people or other entities or whatever you want to call them.
Like here on this planet, I'm not aware of any of that, but I am. Yes, I have. I've got other stories there too, but where I feel like I'm just surrounded by love, but also potentially like past people that have passed in my life. It just feel like I've not communicated. It's like one time I felt like I communicated with my grandmother, but there normally is just this like loving feeling, almost like a circle of protection, and it's angelic or potentially family. I don't know. I do feel so. I won't get in. I feel like I'm hogging all the paranormal stuff. We got to talk about some of the others. But I did have a near-death experience where I did feel very like comforted by a higher power, and that's part of what this podcast. We've tried to. We've gone through some weird experiences ourselves just in our lives, and so yeah, I had a near-death experience. Whenever that was, 2023. So,
wow.
I can't tell you as much about the story as the guys can from the other side that night when we were supposed to get together and record. I had the bag and the podcast stuff and all the computer, and yeah, I didn't make it. The computer did.
Wow, I've got to hear about this, man. That wasn't long ago either. 2023.
No, no. Whoa. I just passed it February 22nd. So I just passed this 2-year anniversary of that. Yeah.
Oh man, what happened, man?
Well, they found out it took them a while, but I have ventricular tachycardia, which means my heart goes into this irregular rhythm. And that night I hadn't been feeling well for a couple of days. And that night I ended up going into, I thought I was sick. So I called Nate and told him that I wasn't feeling well. And it ended up, I went into, my brain wasn't getting enough blood and oxygen. So I went into, what happened is I sent the computer with my wife, who took it over to the guys, and my children were here, and my 15-year-old, who's now my 17-year-old, ended up having to give me CPR because I collapsed. And he was trying to tell my wife there's something wrong with me. She thought I just had the flu or, indigestion or something. And that was not it. And so he ended up having to give me CPR to resuscitate me. And then the guy, like I said, my wife had taken the computer over there. She found out on her way back that, I was having a medical issue.
Wow. And did you go to that space?
Not a recording, Tommy. He just wanted to, he didn't feel like recording.
Yeah.
So try to dive in.
It was an excuse.
I could have just called in. I called in dead is what I was trying to do. But
He goes all out too, I tell you.
Yeah.
Man, yeah, that's
Any excuse.
Should just said you weren't feeling it that night.
I know exactly right.
Jeez.
Didn't have to go to all that.
Nate, you got to tell Tommy what Parker did. That's the best part of this story.
Yeah. So me and Todd were like, okay, well, I guess it's just two of us. We'll get through these episodes and hopefully Shawn start feeling better. And so we're sitting there, and my oldest boy comes walking in, and Harrison, Shawn's oldest, had just called him and let him know what was going on. So he walks in with a popsicle in his mouth, and he's like, yeah, I guess Shawn died or something. I don't know. Like stuck the popsicle back in his mouth and walked out.
Oh
I'm like, what are you talking about?
man.
It's like, this is major news, bud. Not like just nonchalant whatever.
Oh wow.
Oh my gosh, I'll never forget that.
That's how we found out what was going on.
Yeah, they were like, that's not okay.
That is wild, man.
Yeah, I ended up in a coma for several hours. They almost
Oh,
put me on a ventilator. I was off work for 3 months, and they call it Wolf Parkinson's White syndrome, is what it is, like the fancy term. But that took a while. But yeah, it was a lot of. So I did have the experience was basically being surrounded. I just remember my kids going white and everything going white, and then I just felt light and blissful and like I was surrounded by something that was protecting me. And when I woke up after my son did 4 cycles of chest compressions, I came up like the Undertaker, I guess, and I was crying, and I was saying, I guess I was calling out for Jesus, and I was saying I was sorry. And I don't really remember a whole lot of that, but when I was in this, so they say I got dressed and I was able to get in the ambulance and I seemed okay, but then I went into this ventricular tachycardia 5 more times in the ambulance. And so then once I got to the hospital, I was in this coma. And once I came out of that, my son was there and he was playing. They had been worried about me, obviously, and all these things. But so I'm coming to, and he asked me if I would wanted, to hear music. And I asked him to play the Beatles because I love the Beatles. And he asked me what I wanted to listen to. And I told him Across the Universe. And he started playing it. And he said, "Why'd you want to hear that, Dad?" And I said, "Because that's where I was at." And that's what I told him. So, and I do remember. I remember saying that actually, and that's when I first started kind of being coherent enough to remember things.
wow. That just gave me goosebumps, man, when you said
Yeah,
that.
yeah. That it's pretty strange, honestly.
Wow. That is wild. So the place where you went in that moment, was that the same place where in the dream state you went as well?
It felt the feelings felt similar, like that bliss and that lightness. Because when you come back, so when I came back and when I was going in those, like in I guess it was the ambulance, I felt like I was in the opposite realm where it was like being trapped in my body in hell. And I kept thinking, I can't see any. It was dark and I couldn't see anything. I couldn't talk to anybody. I felt like I was having surgery done to me and being poked and prodded and people talking around me, but I didn't know what was happening. And I kept thinking, oh my gosh, I'm stuck in my body. This is what hell would be like. So I felt both instances, and I'd never felt like that, honestly, in an experience. So, yeah, so that there's good and bad to the experience.
Yeah. Wow, man. It's interesting you say about time because I've talked to a few people that have had near-death experiences, and they all say the same thing with like what you're saying about the time felt like or feels like your time's basically irrelevant wherever you are. It could be a long time or it could be very short, but it feels different to how we perceive time.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Man, that is wild.
I do
Wow.
make the joke, and people thought for a while. I guess I had a couple people come back and tell me they thought this was serious, and it was just a joke. It was my way of dealing with the experience, because even though like I had so much support and so much, I mean, these guys were a huge part of that, but so many out there because people thought I was dead and all this kind of stuff. But I made this joke that when I was on the other side, that I had a walk with Jesus on the beach, and he told me, "It's like, look, this is not your time. You know, that's the good news. The bad news is I got to send you back, and you're gonna have to deal with your wife. And I created her, and I don't know what to do with her." So that was my joke. That didn't
Oh
actually happen.
man.
But it was funny because people are like, "Oh my gosh, did you hear Shawn took a walk on the beach with Jesus?" I was like, "Dude, that was a joke. That was a funny part of it, actually." Like, so
Ah, yeah, the wife wasn't happy with that one.
no, she didn't think that's funny.
Wow, man. What an experience or experience is. Incredible. And you say that's starting to happen again now? You're starting
I'm
to
starting to
get
have more. My lucid dreaming and my dreaming is starting to come back and pick up a little bit more. I haven't had any out of body experiences, but so I don't know what that was all about.
mm, it's very interesting. I don't think I have astral projected. I'm not sure. I don't think I have. I used to get really bad sleep paralysis, like in my old house. I don't know if I spoke about it on your show when I was on, but I used to get it like at least once a week, or I'd get this sleep paralysis attack, and it was obviously a horrible feeling, and it was like as I was trying to go to sleep, I would get this vibration go over my body, like a really nice feeling, and it would just go through me. This feeling of a really nice feeling, and then obviously it would turn into there was something trying to attack me in my room, and it got very dark.
Yeah.
But that feeling that I had at the start, the vibration, a lot of people say that that was like the beginning stages of astral projection. I don't know if that's true or not. That's just what people have said to me that it possibly was. I don't know, but I don't think I've actually ever. I feel like I would, as much as I say I'd like to do it and leave my body, I do feel like I'd freak out
Yeah.
and I'd probably panic, and that's probably why I can't. Maybe why I haven't done it.
Yeah, I think I was close to it one time, but mine was definitely chemical induced and not recreational. It was galvanized poisoning from welding at work.
Oh wow.
Gives you symptoms like the flu, fever, uh, joint aches, cold shivers. You know, you just feel horrible. And I remember I was laying on the couch and I just could not get warm, even though I was sweating and on fire. I had like 3 or 4 blankets on me, and I think I got so hot that when I fell asleep, I started, I was like, I could see myself like out on a beam because I'm an iron worker by trade. And I remember being on like a skyscraper on a beam high up in the air. And then I, like what Shawn said, like in his experience, like start swirling around. That's what it felt like. It felt like my consciousness and spirit or whatever came pulled out of my body, and I was going around looking at my physical self on the beam, and then I woke up. So it was like the start of it, but
Hmm. Yeah, man.
I
Yeah.
woke up.
Interesting. Todd, have you had anything where you feel like you possibly have, had an experience like that?
I had sleep paralysis one time. I've said it a few times on our podcast and other shows. I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago, I was at work and I was dead tired, and I we have like a first aid room in our church, and so we have like a little futon couch, you know. So I was laying down and I set my alarm so I make sure I didn't oversleep, and my alarm goes off, and all I could do is reach over and turn it off. I could not sit up. I couldn't get up, and I felt like this force was pushing me down, and I wasn't asleep. I wasn't, you know, obviously I wasn't on any drugs or anything or drinking. And all I could tell was I could not sit up and I couldn't get up. And I felt like this, whatever it was trying to keep me down, wouldn't let me up. And I was trying to scream for help, but I couldn't talk. So it was bizarre and nobody's around. I'm by myself, you know, in this little first aid room just off to the corner of the church. And it lasted for, I don't know, 10 minutes or so. And finally, I just was like to myself, I'm like, okay, I got to get up. I've got to break free. And I just, boom, I just forcefully just sat up, you know, and I was like, what was that? And I mean, it freaked me out. It was creepy.
Yeah.
I never told anybody until we really started the podcast.
Hmm.
You know, I told my wife, but that was about it. So now doing the podcast, I feel obviously confident in telling the story because it does sound crazy. Like, why couldn't I have gotten up? I couldn't. It was like something was sitting on me or pushing me, you know, it's holding me down.
Yeah.
And I was wide awake, Tommy. I was not dreaming. I wasn't
Yeah.
making, I just, for whatever reason, you know, and I didn't hear anything. I didn't hear any talking or any, you know, any whatever it was. It didn't speak to me, but it was definitely keeping me down. So,
Wow.
no, I don't know what that was, but I finally just broke free, sat up, and got the heck out of there. But I haven't had it since. I've never had it since.
Hmm. It's a terrible, terrifying thing, man.
Oh
Could
yeah.
you remember looking around the room? Could you see around the room?
Oh yeah. I couldn't move, but I could, you know, I'm laying there and I could turn my head,
Yeah.
but I couldn't move anything else. I couldn't move my arms or my legs. Yeah.
Wow, man. And could you see anything in the room, or was it like did you have? Because when I used to get it, I used to have like I couldn't look around the room. My eyes were open, but I couldn't look around the room. But I could feel like a presence trying to attack me. I know that sounds crazy, but it was like I could see it in my mind's eye. Basically, it was like a black mass of like just evil. Basically, it wasn't a nice thing at all. But I couldn't. I could see it in my mind's eye, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that does make sense. I couldn't see anything. Couldn't see anything, couldn't hear anything. And I was trying to, what was creeping me out though was, and scared me was I couldn't yell for help. It's like it, whatever it was, took my voice away. And and that was scary. So
Yeah.
whatever it was, I don't know. It hasn't been there again, and I haven't experienced it anywhere else. So yeah,
Hmm.
I didn't know.
Man.
I didn't think I didn't hear anything, but man, I felt it.
Yeah.
I felt it
It's terrifying
on.
when you can't move, man. I mean, that is yeah, it's horrible. It's a horrible feeling.
Yeah,
So you
and they.
was you trying to sleep at that time or
I had just woken up. My alarm went off. Woke me up. I turned over, moved my arm to turn the phone off, and then I couldn't get up. And then I couldn't move anything. I couldn't move my legs. Couldn't move my. Once I reached and turned the phone off, I tried to sit up and I couldn't sit up.
man?
Couldn't get up, and I was wide awake. And I was like, "Man, this is what is going on here." And it lasted for a good amount of time until I could finally just broke free. And like I said, I just finally sat up and got the heck out of there and didn't mention it for years
Hmm.
until like
Hmm.
I said until the podcast.
Yeah, yeah. I never used to talk about it really. I mean, not even to my wife really at the time. And as I say, I used to get it like once a week in my old flat where I used to live. I've had it a couple of times in this house, but it doesn't really happen now, thankfully. But I didn't understand what it was. I mean, I used to listen to paranormal podcasts and stuff, and still at the time, I never used to connect the dots. I just thought I was stressed. I just thought it was a stress thing, really. And I thought it was, I didn't really know. It didn't last too long when it happened to me. I used to get out of it quite quick, but it was horrible, a horrible feeling. But yeah, man, it is weird. This world is wild. When
Yeah.
you experience stuff like that, you're like, there's a lot more going on. That's for sure. Have
Yeah,
you?
I'd say that.
Stranger than we can even think.
Hmm. Hundred
Well,
percent.
and what scared me is it just took my ability to, I mean, like I was just paralyzed. I've never felt like that before, and so I'm like, I was kind of whatever it wanted to do to me. You know what I mean? It could have hurt me. It could have done whatever, but it didn't, luckily. So
Hmm.
I just once I once I got the heck out of there, I was like, well, I mean, I was breathing heavy too because I was trying to speak and I couldn't speak, and I'm trying to move and I couldn't move, and when I finally did, I walked out of there and I kind of ran. I'll admit, I kind of ran, but
Yeah, I don't blame you, man.
yeah, it just scared me because, like I said, I was kind of frozen and I didn't. I was at its will. Whatever it was. I don't know what it was. I don't know.
Hmm.
My
It
little
definitely feels like a spiritual attack to me. Like looking back on it now, and when I've experienced it quite recently, that I think that's how it feels to me. I know that there might be a scientific side to it. I'm not sure, but it feels. I don't know. It doesn't feel right. It definitely feels like something else is going on there, man. It feels
well,
like an
people.
attack.
Yeah, I agree with you. And people say, "Well, you're in a church, and I'm like, "Yeah, but just being in a church doesn't mean you're not going to be attacked by evil forces or whatever you want to say." Yeah, so
Hmm.
that doesn't matter. So it was something dark. I know that.
Yeah,
So.
man. Nathan, have you experienced anything like that?
I've never had paralysis. No,
Good.
no.
We don't want it either.
If I have, but my memory was wiped too, so I had no recollection of it.
Yeah, well, that's possible as well. We hear that as well. So
Yeah.
you guys actually go paranormal investigating together as well.
Yeah, we tried
Yeah.
to when we came. We've been to Waverly Hills, Whispers Estate. We did go to Bobby Mackey's. It wasn't really an investigation. It was more we went to a live show and then we went on a tour. But where else? Indiana State Sanatorium here locally. And what is that?
Randolph.
Yeah, that was an investigation though. But
Well,
we
that's
have.
true. We didn't stay for. Yeah, they invited us for one, but yeah, we couldn't stay.
So I guess we've been on 2 or 3 investigations and 4 or 5 tours. Yeah,
Yeah.
There's
we
some
have a good time. It's fun.
pretty spooky places there. Waverly Hills, that's a name I've heard many times. And
We've had some good paranormal there. Nate, Shawn, and I, all 3 of us had good That was a good night.
Yeah.
What was it, guys? About 8 hours, like
Yeah.
'Something
8 hours.
like that.
Yeah, they took us on an hour tour first, and that was awesome, just to kind of get a feel for the place, and then they let you kind of do your thing. And yeah, I mean, Shawn and I, we were together one part, and we heard chains rattling and footsteps and uh, just all kinds of weird stuff that we couldn't explain. This guy that did the tour, we asked him, we were like, he just went for a smoke break out on the terrace. We were like, was that you? Were you making noises earlier? And he was like, no, I just got up here. We're like, okay, that's weird. So we thought maybe it was him, and he was like, no, I just got here. And there's nobody around. I mean, it was, what else, Shawn? What else was it? Oh,
There was so I mean, it's like a fortress of a place. It's huge, and I think did we have like 12 or 15 people there? I mean, it was a decent
yeah,
group, but when you spread out, like you didn't see each other for hours. And so there's one, I forget what floor, Nate. Do you remember the fourth? Was it fourth floor where you do? So there, if you go down a hallway and you ask who wants to come out and talk or interact, and you put your hands out, sometimes you can get apparitions that come out. There's some famous apparitions they've taken pictures of there in that hallway, and so we tried it. And I was like, okay, I'll be the guinea pig and go ahead. And they said, just watch and see when he goes along whether anything comes out or interacts. And so I'm going down and hey, anybody want to come out? What's going on tonight? And putting my hands out, and I start hearing in front of me hard soled shoes, just click click click, and Todd was just behind me, and I stopped, and he's like, "What's wrong?" And I was like, "Do you hear that?" And he's like, "Hear what?" And I was like, "I hear shoes." And like we all had soft shoes, none of us had hard shoes on, and nobody in the group did. Nobody was wearing high heeled shoes or doctor, dress shoes or something like that. But that's what it sounded like, either like a nurse's. And I thought, well, somebody's got to be up there. So we kind of scurried ahead. Nobody was there. It was up to like a stairwell, and I thought, there's got to be another group here. There was nobody up there, but we definitely heard, those footprints and footsteps.
Oh,
yeah,
interesting.
We also got there, so you can play with kids there on the top floor, and it was kind of a stormy night and dark, and I don't think it ever rained, but it was just like kind of a intense weather night. But there was these collection of balls, and we have video of this too. And one ball would move, and then it would stop, and then it would move again, and we'd pick it up and try to move it and see, oh, it's just a trick or something, or maybe the wind. And it wasn't windy at that time up there, and I kept standing by the door, just like, okay, I got to feel some wind. There was no current, and there was no explanation for it, but it would move and then it would stop, then it would move again, and it was just the same like purple ball. And we couldn't figure it out. And then we were with one of our friends who's a paranormal investigator, Erin Ignatz, and she went into the other part where had another, toys and balls and stuff, and she had it on video where she walks into this room all by herself, and it was like somebody kicked the ball right at her, and she's like, "Oh, hello," And again, it was no wind. We didn't see it, but she showed us the video of it. And we're like, "That's crazy." So there was definitely some activity up there.
I've heard so many wild stories from that place.
Mm-hmm.
That is a place that's got a lot of mad energy. That is for sure. Some
It
wild
wasn't
energy.
scary though. It was actually you felt, I thought we'd be scared and intimidated and like, okay, I want to go. But you almost felt comforted there, and there was this pleasant, soft energy of, as long as you respected it and showed it respect, it was pleasant experience, truly.
Interesting. That's
Mm-hmm.
interesting. Was Waverly Hills? It was a hospital. Is that right?
Tuberculosis sanitarium. Mm-hmm.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I think it was a nursing home at one point and a psychiatric floor, and children came there for TB. And so it's had a lot of different energies there.
Hmm.
Yeah. When they heard the chains, what made sense with that was when it was a nursing home, the state told them they could operate on the first 3 floors, but not the third or fifth floor. And the fifth floor is just two large rooms right off the elevator in the central part of the building. So it's not a full floor like all the other 4, but they prohibit them from using those 2 floors for whatever reason. Well, the state came in and did a check because they're getting, I believe they're getting, what do you call it? Complaints of family members of patients there, and they happened to go up on the 4th floor, and a lot of the folks that were there were mentally handicapped and that kind of stuff, and they found them chained on beds up on the 4th floor with rotten food around them and sitting in their own feces, and some of them were even dead. And that is
Wow.
floor that has the majority of the shadow figures on that floor. And there was a group of, I believe, 3 kids at one time that broke in there, and security guards heard banging and yelling, and nobody was there at that time, and found them up at that 4th floor at the central stair tower, and they couldn't get the door open. They could see through the little window, but it's a heavy steel door.
They had like a hatchet too, didn't they?
Yeah, that's how they broke in. Is they hatcheted through one of the wooden covered windows on the lower floor, and they kept yelling that they wouldn't let them out. They won't let us out. And so the security guard just touched the door with his hand, and it swung right open. And they had us, the tour guide. He was telling this story to us, and he had us, touch the door. Even though it's a big, heavy steel door, it was balanced so well you could open it like with your pinky finger, and it'd swing right open.
Man.
And so they took off running out of there, and the door has hatchet marks and holes all up and down the door.
From them trying to get out.
So they
shadow people were keeping them in. Yep.
They gather that they're surrounded by the shadow people because they're in there vandalizing the property, and they had them captured.
Taught them a lesson.
Yeah, man. Can't imagine breaking into there. That is one place I wouldn't want to break into. That's for sure.
No.
Wow. How long ago was that then? That happened? You know?
Gosh, I don't know.
The story, or
Yeah,
us?
the kids breaking in. Was that quite a recent?
I'm not sure when that was. What, maybe, I don't know, late 80s, early 90s.
Yeah, it was a good time ago.
Yeah.
Wow. Man.
Wasn't recent. Yeah.
Did you guys see anything in there? Did you see any shadow figures or something move in the corner of your eye or anything like that?
We all did.
We all saw a shadow figure at the end when we were leaving, and Aaron's mom was with us, and she was like, because we were like, "Do you see that? There's a something over there." I don't know how far away. Nate, what would you say?
I'd say we're probably 60, 70 feet from the corner.
Yeah.
Where the hallway dropped over, and we could see like the head and shoulders of a silhouette, dark silhouette, like popping out around the corner.
Yep.
We're like, hey, it's okay. And it like popped back behind the corner. And then after a few seconds, it'd pop its head back out again. And so it just kept playing with us, sort of like hide and seek.
Yeah. And we all saw that plain as day. And when they say shadow figures are black or they're black, it's true. They are just the darkest thing you can imagine,
Yeah.
And I didn't do anything. It just was, like wasn't coming at us or anything, but Aaron's mom was scared. She's like, I don't want to go, walk that way. And Aaron's like, we have to. That's the only way.
We have to. Yeah.
That's the way out.
We have to go that way, right? And we did. Nothing happened. It was fine. But yeah, it was freaky. That was the night. That was a great way to end the night.
It was. We were trying to convince each other. I was like, we cannot be seeing this. Like I was verbalizing, this is not possible. But yet there it is, and it was. I can't explain it. I'm pretty skeptical on like, I have to be shown. I have to see. And I'm sitting there, and as I'm seeing, I'm thinking, this can't be real. But We certainly did see it.
Yeah.
That's so
Yeah.
cool that you all saw
Unexplained.
it as well. That you all saw it.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Yeah.
cool. Wow, man.
And I was walking down one of the hallways with Erin and her mom, and I took off into one of the patient rooms, and right in my right ear, I heard a man sigh in my ear. It's just a right in my ear. And Erin goes, "Whoa!" And so I was just sitting there. I was like, "What?" She's like, "Did you hear that?" And I'm like, "Hear what?" She's like, "I just heard a man sigh." I was like, "Yep, I just heard the same thing."
Wow, man. Interesting.
Yeah, that was wild. And then she had a recorder, or maybe his EMF reader or whatever.
Yeah.
She turned it on, and it sounded like kids playing on a playground, but you couldn't make out any words. It just sounded like laughter and screaming and like swings squeaking. And it lasted for like 10, 15 seconds, then it died. It's like, that's weird. These are brand new batteries. And it wouldn't turn back on or nothing. She had to put new batteries in it, and then there was nothing.
Oh, man. How often do you hear that with paranormal investigations? That full batteries just get drained. That you hear that so often.
Yep.
Seems to be something to that, man. Wow.
Like
Wow.
they leached the energy out of the batteries.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
That's
And it's
why I carry like 5 or 6 flashlights with me.
He's the flashlight guy.
so that shadow figure that you all saw, was that the first time you'd all seen an entity?
Yeah.
Sort of was, yeah. Yeah.
Yep, for me, yeah.
Wow. And you shared that together. That is cool.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, what a cool thing. Because I mean, I've had a lot of experience, I've seen a lot of things, but when you like, there's been a couple of times where my mother-in-law's been with me, my brother's been with me when we saw the UFOs when we was younger. It's when you've got someone there with you to see, you're seeing it as well. It's like that's definitely not in your mind. You're definitely not going crazy and having a mad moment. You're both seeing that, unless you're both having the same crazy moment. But that's very unlikely.
That's why it's nice, because if we try, I mean, any of us try to go to work tomorrow and say, hey, and tell even remotely any of these kind of stories, or even the light versions of them, and people would just look at you like, you guys are weird. That's what but it's refreshing to, know that it happens to other people. And like you said, more often than not, it's very rare that people don't have some kind of experience.
Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of people don't want to share this stuff because they don't want to look crazy. I get it.
Yeah.
And I do get it.
Right.
Get it. I think us guys, because we talk about this stuff all the time and we're so open to it now and it's out there now. People listen to the show. They know we're crazy if we're crazy. It's too late. There's no
Resident
going
weirdos.
There's no going back. So I find it, we all find it easy to talk about it now. But when you meet someone that's like not really open, like I spoke to someone today that I work with, and I'm like, one of the first time I've met them really, and one of my first questions was, you had any paranormal experiences? And they're looking at me like, what? apparently they hadn't.
Yeah, right.
But no, it's interesting, man. Have you guys had any other paranormal experiences that stand out? UFOs, maybe cryptid related. Nathan, I believe you're into Bigfoot. Is that right? Did we talk about that last time?
Yeah. Yeah, I like the Bigfoot.
What are your thoughts?
I'm about probably 70-30 that it's real, or there's something out there. I don't put all my eggs in the basket, but it's fun to think about it.
Yeah, I hope they're out there. I like to think they're out there. That's for sure. I think there's something. Too many people see these things. There's too much. Not everyone's lying. They can't be.
Right.
And the Patterson Gimlin film, which for me is like legit.
Mm-hmm. every day you're seeing stuff of things of the past and being discovered. And just because nobody has physically seen a megalodon doesn't mean they don't exist. They find their teeth all the time, so
Hmm. Yeah,
who knows what's out there? Anything's possible.
100%, man. I watched the documentary. I don't know if it was real or not. It was on the Discovery Channel, and it was about the megalodon. And I watched it. It was a great. Did you guys see this?
I've seen that. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I don't know if it's real or not. To this day, I don't know if it's real or not. Apparently, it's based. It was like a reenactment thing,
Hmm.
Yeah.
and they were looking for the megalodon, and they put loads of blood and guts in the sea, and that loads of sharks came up. They had all different types of sharks, and all of a sudden they all scattered, and
Hmm.
and this big one came up. I don't know. I don't know if it's real or not. I don't know.
Yeah.
Is that real?
I don't know. I didn't used to think that the megalodon was real, but I don't know. It's like with Bigfoot or all these other cryptids. The longer I do this show, the more I lean towards there's
Mhm.
more out there than we have any clue. I think we know. They say we know more about space half the time than we do about our own oceans.
Mhm.
So it's very possible. I think.
Yeah. If we only know 20%, I think they say 20% of our ocean we know. I mean,
Pretty wild.
that's a lot out there, man, that we don't. There's definitely things out there we don't know 100%. Um, it is interesting though.
We
What
know
about,
more about space than we do the ocean.
yeah, yeah. And you think we don't know that much about space, really?
Yeah, we do. Exactly. That's true.
Yeah,
What do we
shows
really
you
know?
it shows
They
you how
can't
little we know about the ocean. Yeah, what lives down deep and deep and deep. Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah. I
Well,
know they can't decide whether Pluto's a planet or an asteroid or what.
yeah,
or Pluto.
tag along.
yeah. What about UFOs? What are your guys' thoughts on UFOs and aliens?
Uh,
Uh,
Nate, you
my
want?
my opinion is I feel like there's definitely other life out there. Do they have greater technology than us to actually come visit us? Possibly. Um, but I really, really hope it's real.
Mhm.
I mean, if we're the only planet in the vast universe that exists.
Right.
Mhm.
I also hope that if it exists, and I like to think that it does too, that it's benevolent powers and not the opposite. And part of me thinks that, man, if it was something that was really out to get us, that we would be in a lot worse shape than we are, or that we would have been annihilated a long time ago. But I know there's also kind of conspiracy theories about that too. But yeah, I think the aliens might be more spiritual in nature, beings that are waiting for us to kind of play catch up, with understanding. I mean, we're talking about the things we don't understand. We don't even understand ourselves, let alone body, mind, and spirit. There's such a deepness to us that we struggle with that. So I think, maybe when if we're in the universal kindergarten right now, if we're lucky, honestly, I think we're just trying to play catch up
Mhm.
in the universe.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Do you think we're ever going to get the answers to these paranormal questions? Do you think we can in this life? Do you think we can ever fully know?
No, strong no from me. I don't
We've
think.
talked about that before, yeah, and part of it is that we've said if we do know, it almost takes the fun out of it.
Yeah. We haven't got a podcast anymore. That's for sure.
Exactly right. Yeah, we know it all.
Have to talk
That's
about
all,
something
folks.
else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think some things will be figured out. They have to be, but then again, we're still struggling with knowing our own history and who killed JFK and all those kind of things. So
Yeah.
hard to say in our lifetime whether things will be all figured out. But I think there'll always be some kind of mystery.
Yeah. Well, apparently they've released the JFK files, but I still don't know what happened.
Yeah.
Do you guys?
I don't think anybody. I guess we're not supposed to. They said if it is like, say, a government entity like the CIA or the mafia or whatever, pretty sure that they didn't write it down. It's not like, here's how we did it. It's not like OJ Simpson,
Mhm.
here's how I did it.
The glove don't fit.
Sounds like if I was the killer,
Yeah.
I would have done it. What a
Yeah.
bozo.
So have you guys got any other paranormal experiences to share? Any other things that you think we might have missed? Any other experiences?
Uh, all I know about the UFOs is I was not a believer in UFOs, and now since doing the podcast, I've inched closer and closer to believing that there is something out in the vast universe. Um, Kind of like Nate, do they have superior technology to travel to us? Yeah, possibly. I just think there's too many people, kind of like the Bigfoot. I wasn't big on the Bigfoot deal until doing this podcast, and you just hear stories and stories, and you're like, these people don't have anything to lose. I mean, they don't have.
Hmm.
I'm sorry, they do have something to lose. I'm sorry, I said that wrong. They they're not gaining anything from saying that they saw Bigfoot or if they saw a UFO or they experienced a whatever it is.
Hmm.
I haven't seen a UFO and I haven't seen Bigfoot. I haven't seen a ghost. I've seen a shadow figure. So I believe anything's possible. With
Hmm.
all of this stuff, there's too many people, like you said, Tommy. There's too many people that have seen something, and what do they have to gain? Nobody's getting rich off of this stuff, and so all they're going to do is get mocked and laughed at, and I don't know. I think the more, like I said, the more we do this and talk about it and get ideas bounced around from other people, I believe there is something out there, UFOs, possibly a Bigfoot and spirits and ghosts and all that. Absolutely, yeah.
Hmm. Do you think it could all be connected? All of this stuff?
Mm.
I think it's very possible.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm a big believer of everything's connected by energy.
Hmm.
I mean, our bodies are essentially power plants. I mean, we burn fuel in order to live and survive, eating food and calories and burning it. Um, I mean, if you look at the concept of our soul and our spirit and our consciousness, I mean, that has to be some sort of electrical energy because, I mean, that sort of gives you an answer to some of these paranormal hauntings of residual energy and leftover experiences that are stuck in, like, I know places with heavy limestone, it gets stuck in those areas and that kind of stuff. Um, so yeah, I think in some way everything is connected somehow.
Hmm. Yeah, man. It's interesting stuff, guys. It's interesting. I hope we get the answers, and having conversations like this, I think get us closer. The more we all share our experiences, and you know, it's it's difficult one, man. I don't know if we're gonna
Get our
if we can
get our
get the
freak
answers
ons.
now. You'll get our freak on. Yeah.
Sorry.
So what's the plan for you guys going forward? More investigations, obviously with the staying with the podcast. What's the plans?
I have to say, with one of my favorite things that you say, Tommy, and you said it on our show too, is when you look into the paranormal looks back. And I keep thinking, we've heard that a few times, but when you said it, it really strikes a chord. And I know I can speak for the guys that there's no plan to stop with the podcast for sure. We have a bucket list. We joke about our list. It's an ongoing list. Will we be able to go to all the places? Heck no. But will we try to go to some of them and connect with some of the people that we'd love to connect with? That's absolutely part of our plan. And just to keep having fun and helping people, really continuing to spotlight the mental health aspect is the most important thing. And we always say that when we come together for fun, we come together for the guy time, we come together for the paranormal, and just to enjoy, each other and give a good product to the creepies. But the most important thing we do is to continue to build that mental health community.
Mhm.
Yep.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. I want you guys in the UK as well at some point. I want you
Yes,
guys to come over
I,
here. I'll
I would
take you to
love
some
that.
castles.
That would be great.
Um,
I'm very drawn to that.
Oh yeah.
I've got a castle down the road that's 1,000 years old, or over 1,000 years old, I think. It's got some
We want to
history
go to
there.
that pub. We want to go to that pub that, you were talking. Yeah.
Yes, yeah,
Have a pint.
yeah. The
I want
ba-
some Guinness.
the Badger Pub, the Badger Pub. It's just
The
down the
Badger
road
Pub,
from.
yeah.
And I think it was 12th century. One of the walls of 12th century in there, or 13th century. Very
Very,
old. Whatever it is, it's very old.
very,
Very creepy.
that's right up our alley. Creepy.
Yeah, man. Well, you
I would
guys.
say, along with Shawn, he said it perfectly. We just want to keep having fun, keep doing this, meeting more people. That's one of the biggest things that I get out of this podcast is meeting people like yourself, Tommy, and we've gained so many friends. I mean, people that we can message, and I even have some phone numbers, and they could call me anytime. I could call them, and it's just an amazing community, and we just want to meet more people, and we do have plans to do some more investigations and tours, and we just surpassed, a couple of months ago, we got over 1 million downloads. So we're pretty proud of that, and we just want to
Yeah, man.
see the podcast grow, and reach as many people as we can. And the mental health aspect is huge. That's a big part of our show. If somebody said, "Man, you just put a smile on my face," or I was having a bummer of a day, and I was down in the dumps, or I was depressed, but you guys, which I've gotten a couple messages, people saying this exact thing, but you got me in a good mood. That's huge. I get goosebumps thinking about that. That makes me feel good. So
Yeah, man. Yeah. You guys are awesome, and you can just tune in and feel very relaxed. And I love your show, man.
oh, thank you.
And
Appreciate
you.
it.
Right back at you.
I am a creepy, that is for sure.
There we go. There we go.
Gentlemen, thank you so much for coming on Let's Get Freaky. I hope this is the first of many visits. I'd love to get you guys back on and talk more.
Anytime.
Thank you so much. And I love being on your show recently as well, so people can go and check that out as well. Can you tell the listeners where they can find you guys?
You can find us on Facebook. You just look up MAACO Podcast or Middle Aged and Creeped Out. We're on Instagram at MAACO Podcast, MAACO. But if you type in MAACO or Middle Aged and Creeped Out, you can find us pretty easy. Let's see, what else are we on? We're on X. I don't know what that is, Shawn. You're the one that handles the X.
Oh, that's the Wild Wild West.
That is, man.
So is TikTok, though, I guess. Yeah, we're on TikTok too.
Yeah, TikTok. If you just search Middle Aged and Creeped Out, you can find us pretty easy. And if you want to reach out to us, we have an email. It's maacopodcast@gmail.com. Just want to say that. Do what?
2 ways.
2 ways. 2 ways. Yeah. So, yeah, we're out there. We're out there.
You guys are doing an awesome job. Keep killing it. And I will keep listening. And I love what you guys are doing. And thank you. Thank you very much for coming on Let's Get Freaky. You're a part of the Freaky fam now as well.
Thank you. We appreciate that. We're honored.
Are
Yeah.
are we official freaks now? Is that what
You are freaks.
All right, let's go.
Guys, thank you so much for listening. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. If you have, share it where you can. That is a great way to support the show, and we'll be back very soon for more freaky conversations. In the meantime, stay safe and keep it freaky. Bye for now. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thank you. Love you, Tommy.
Love you guys.
Love you, man. That was fun.